All right, good morning everyone. We are going to start with a new chapter, and that's basically in electrostatics. All right, so electrostatics, a part of it will be in the 11th standard and a part of it is in the 12th standard. Okay, now as the name itself suggests, what do we actually infer and mean by electrostatics? So electrostatics is, or rather we will say that electric charges, right? So we have electric charges, and these electric charges are studied under two branches of physics. Okay, so one of the branches will be, of course, when we are studying about the moving charges. Okay, so when we are studying about moving charges, so all the phenomena which are basically associated with the study of moving charges are studied under electrodynamics. We have a lot of phenomena that are happening due to charges which are moving. All right, so let's say if we talk about electric current, so obviously electric current is basically generated by charges which are moving. Then we will have magnetic effect due to electric current. Okay, so when we are studying magnetic effect due to electric current, again this is a phenomena which is associated with moving charges. Okay, so these are a lot of phenomena. There are a lot of phenomena which are happening due to charges which are moving. So that is called electric current. We are studying all these phenomena under electrodynamics. In the same way, when we talk about charges, so these are moving charges basically. So these are moving charges. All right. So moving charges are basically electrodynamics and electric current, magnetic effect due to electric current, all these are phenomena. When we are talking about electrostatics, okay, what do we mean by electrostatics? So when we talk about static charges, what do we actually mean by static charges? Static charges are charges which are stationary, okay, which are not moving. But will there be an impact due to them? Yes, there will be certain impacts due to stationary charges. So these are basically stationary charges. So what phenomena could there be due to this? Okay, so this is studied under electrostatics. This is studied under electrostatics. As you see, the name itself, static means stationary. So this is studied under electrostatics. So what do we have in electrostatics? We have a lot of things like, charges exert a force on each other. So the charges which are stationary, they will exert a force on each other. There will be an electric potential that will develop. There will be an electric electric field. There will be an electric field due to these charges. So all these are basically what? These are phenomena that we study primarily under electrostatics. So these are phenomena which we will primarily study under electrostatics. Okay. So what exactly we mean by electrostatic? This is again study of charges. Electrostatics is basically study of charges under rest. So these are, here we are talking about charges which are under rest, which are not under any kind of motion, they are under rest. Okay, so study of charges at rest. What kind of force that we study, what the force that exists between charges at rest, the force that exists between charges which are at rest. All right, and there are or rather static charges. Let's say these are static charges. So these are force that exists between the charges at rest, or we can say that these are static charges. Okay, there is a potential that develops. Between them. Okay, there is an electric field that develops between them. Electric field due to a charge. So just as due to a magnet you have a magnetic field around it, so due to a charge there will be an electric field around it. So this again is studied in electrostatics. Okay, so in this way we can also say that electrostatics is basically static electricity, or we can also call it as frictional electricity. This is also called as frictional electricity. Although electricity although friction has got nothing to do with electricity until unless we study resistance, but this is also called frictional electricity, which means that charges are basically static. See, the effort of friction is to make a body static. Okay, if a body is trying to move, if friction is automatically applied on the body, the purpose of friction is to make the body stop. In the same way, the study here is about charges which are stopped, charges which are not moving. Hence, we also call it as frictional electricity. All right. So, there are different types of charges, and these charges basically exert a force. The charges exert a force on each other. These charges basically exert a force on each other. So, we have, let's say if I were to talk about, or rather we will have to, okay, let's say we have studied this in the, let it be, okay. So, I will just rub the board, and in the meantime you can just take a snapshot out here. All right, so talking more about charges here, when we talk about charges, what is a charge basically? A charge is an intrinsic property of a substance, and this substance can be anything, element, compound, ion, anything. All right. So, what do we mean by a charge? It is an intrinsic property. Intrinsic property means that you cannot do any further research on that. All right. You cannot further subdivide, or you cannot further study that. Just as mass is also an intrinsic property of a substance. So, mass is also an intrinsic property. Just as mass is an intrinsic property of a substance, similarly charge is also an intrinsic property of a substance. Now, let's say when we talk about charges, or rather when we talk about mass, we say that mass of a moving body has a scope of getting changed. So, this will be rest mass under root of 1 minus V by C square, 1 by V square by C square. Okay. So, now understand this, this is basically the mass of a moving body. When a body is moving, okay, when a body is basically moving, it tends to change its mass. So, this is basically its rest mass. We are not trying to learn about mass here, but I am just giving you a heads up as to how we take intrinsic properties. So, this is basically the mass of a moving body, and this is the rest mass. See, this is basically the velocity of the body. V is basically the velocity of the body, and this is the C is basically the velocity of light. Now, we all know that velocity of a light. So, why would we not consider this? We all know that velocity of light is to a tune of 3 into 10 to the power of 8 meter per second. This is to a tune of 3 into 10 to the power of 8 meter per second. Right. So, what happens here is that this is so small in our day-to-day life. Okay, in our day-to-day life for things, this is so small that is not taken into consideration. V square, which will be what? V will be 10 meter per second, 20 meter per second, 100 meter per second. Okay, at the most 1000 meter per second. But look at this. This is to a tune of 10 to the power of 8, and that's so we are squaring it. So, it more or less this term becomes 0. If it becomes 0, then obviously mass becomes equal to rest mass. This is what happens in day-to-day life for things that we are considering. But this is how there is a scope of the mass getting changed for a moving body. All right. Now, when we talk about charges, we all know that the charges are of two types. Okay, charges are of two types. We all know this, right? So, there is positive charge, there is something called as positive charge, there is something called as negative charge. All right. So, we have also studied their properties, like like charges repel, unlike charges attract each other. For example, this is something that we have already studied, but just to give you a heads up here, if you have a glass rod, all right, let's say you have a glass rod and you have suspended it. Okay, so this is a glass rod which you have suspended. Now, on one of the edges of the rod, you happen to you just rub it with a silk cloth. So, this is basically a glass rod, and when you happen to rub it with a silk cloth, at one of its ends, what will happen is it will acquire a positive charge. Now, we all know why it acquires a positive charge. Okay, so when you rub, there is a friction which is generated. That's the reason, if you recall, I had mentioned that electrostatics is also known as frictional electricity. All right. The reason why it happens is because when you are rubbing a glass rod with silk cloth, what happens is that the electrons tend to move from this end where it is getting rubbed into the silk cloth, because of which this end will acquire a slightly positive charge, and this is where the positive charges will accumulate. All right. Now, if you happen to bring another rod, which is positively charged close to it, what will happen? They both will repel each other. Right? Okay. In the same way, if you have ebonite rod, and if you happen to rub it with wool, okay, the same thing, same process. You suspend an ebonite rod here and you rub one of its ends with wool. You will see that it acquires negative charge. How will you understand that it acquires negative charge? The moment you bring a negatively charged body, it will repel. Okay, it will repel. Okay, so like charges always repel each other, and that's the confirmation that it is a charged body. See, how will you know that a particular body is charged or not? How will we actually know? If you happen to bring it close to another charged body, and if it repels, then it is surely its charge. The reason why I'm saying this is because if you have a TV screen, right? If you have a TV screen or maybe a computer screen, we all know that cathode ray tube is there and all that stuff is there. So you happen to bring your hand very close to it when it is on, you will see that the hair in your hand actually stands up. All right. Or if you bring very small pieces of paper close to it, you will see that it sticks around. Why? Because see, these particles are not charged. The hair on your hand is not charged. This is not charged. But since this tube is charged, the computer screen or the TV is charged, it will tend to attract. Okay, because of which it will stick around. See, charge, whichever body is charged, it always tends to attract. Because it will need a medium for it to flow. So whenever a body is charged, it will always tend to attract. So are these bodies charged? No. But if I happen to bring an ebonite rod which is rubbed with wool close to a negatively charged rod, it will repel. So for sure this has got negative charge. If a body is attracted to a charged body, it can be charged or it can have no charge. So attraction is not a sure test for charging, to test whether a body is charged or not. But repulsion definitely is. So repulsion is a sure test to confirm whether a body is charged or not. If a body is charged or not, you can understand if it is getting repelled by another charged body. So definitely there has to be equal charges out there to repel. What will happen if I bring this glass rod? If I happen to bring this glass rod close to the ebonite rod. So this is basically a glass rod. This is glass rod which is rubbed with, let's say, silk, and this is an ebonite rod which is basically rubbed with wool. Okay, so this has acquired a positive charge, this has acquired a negative charge. Now what will happen? They will attract each other. Okay, so we all know this, we need not write about it. Like charges repel and unlike charges attract each other. We have studied this from I don't know which standard, but this is how charges would behave. In fact, if you this is not something which is specifically correlated to just solids, substances which are in solid state. It is also applicable to liquid state. For example, if you have a water running through a tap, so let's say this is the water which is falling through a tap, okay, and you happen to bring a charged body close to it, let's say a charged body close to it, you will see that this water actually now will change its direction and fall like this. Why? Again, as I told you, every charged body will attract an uncharged body. So attraction is not sure of a test that this is charged as well, but one of the bodies is charged definitely. Okay, so what will happen is that the water will now change its course of falling like this rather than this. All right, so the water will change its course of falling like this rather than this. All right, so these are certain phenomena which are concerned or correlated, which we have already studied in the previous classes about charged bodies. Okay, so whenever we charge a body, so we can just write it that unlike charges repel each other and like charges, oh, unlike charges attract, I am so sorry, this will be unlike charges attract each other and like charges repel each other, right? So these are things which we have already studied. Okay, so what we need to understand here is that charge is an intrinsic property of matter. This is basically an intrinsic property of a substance, matter, whatever you want to say it. This is an intrinsic property. Okay, so charge is basically an intrinsic property, and static charges basically means the accumulation of charges in a certain part of the matter or the object. Okay, so just as by rubbing a glass rod with silk cloth, certain positive charges are accumulating. Why are they accumulating? Because this silk cloth, when you rub, you increase the heat of the surface. When you are rubbing this with a silk cloth, you are increasing the heat, which will excite the electrons, and these electrons will actually go to the silk cloth. So the part of the silk cloth which you were using to rub this glass rod acquires a slightly negative charge. Okay, and simultaneously this acquires a certain positive charge. The opposite happens in case of an ebonite rod. When you are rubbing it with a wool, okay, rubbing creates friction, friction generates temperature, temperature will excite the electrons and they will compel the electrons to move into the wool piece. Okay, so the wool basically, oh I'm sorry, the wool will actually lose its electrons here. So there will be an entry of electrons into the ebonite rod. So now what has happened is the number of electrons has increased. Okay, see, the only thing that actually gets transferred here is electrons. We have to understand this. Okay, whenever we are talking about charges, we are primarily correlating it to electrons. The electrons are the only thing that get transferred or are transferred from one matter to another. By losing electrons, a body acquires positive charge, and by gaining electrons, a body acquires a negative charge. So by losing electrons, a body acquires positive charge, and by gaining electrons, a body acquires a negative charge. That's how the entire charge history will be. Okay, and we will study more about this. So you can take a snapshot if it helps you, and we will move on to the next. Alright, so we will now move on to the electric conductors and insulators that we have of course studied in earlier classes. So we have something called as conductors, and we have something called as insulators. All right, so we have something called as conductors and we have something called as insulators. Now what basically are conductors? Conductors are basically, so we know the difference between them and we have studied it in earlier classes as well, but in terms of electrostatics we need to have a certain amount of knowledge about them. All right, so when we talk about conductors, what are these conductors? So conductors basically, I would say they would carry electric charges. Conductors are capable of carrying electric charges from one place to another, right? From one place to another. They basically are a transport medium for charges, all right? So they can effectively transport the charges from one place to another. Whenever we are talking about conductors, conductors means those objects which can transfer the charges from one place to another. Why would they do so? So insulators will be basically cannot conduct electric charges. So will they accumulate? So what happens is, see, it's like here there will be a flow of charges which will be maintained. So there will be a flow of charges within a conductor, whereas in an insulator the charges will accumulate. They will not be able to flow. It's like a drainage system which is choked up. Okay, a drainage system which is kind of choked up will not allow the materials to pass through. It will get choked up and will start accumulating. And here we have a drainage system which is affluent, which will allow the things to pass through. Right. So here we have insulators which will not allow the charges to pass through, and here we have conductors which will effectively allow the charges to easily pass through. Now what is it that makes the charges flow in a conductor, and why do the charges do not flow in an insulator? That is something that we have to understand here. Okay, so electric charges flow from one place to another. If we take basically, so what happens is that in conductors we we have a lot of free electrons. So these free electrons are moving randomly. They are basically moving randomly. They are moving randomly. Okay. When you place a conductor in an electric field, so when you happen to place a conductor in an electric field, so these electrons basically they are numerous in number, huge number of electrons. So we have a huge number of free electrons, and these free electrons basically form the electron gas. These free electrons basically form the electron gas, and they are moving randomly. When we place them in an electric field, these electrons. Right, so what we have here in electric charges, in conductors, there is a huge amount of free electrons. These free electrons are nothing but they are valency electrons. So these free electrons are not bound to the nucleus. So what happens is that these free electrons are actually not bound to the nucleus. Just let me make some corrections here. So these free electrons, there is a huge number of free electrons which are available, and these are basically valence electrons which are not bound to the nucleus. Okay, because of which there is a formation of an electron gas. Okay, so it's an electron gas. The moment it is subjected, the moment a conductor is subjected to an external electric field, okay, this is basically an external electric field. When you subject a conductor to an external electric field, what will happen? These electrons will drift. These electrons will drift against the electric field. Will drift against the electric field. So these electrons will drift against the electric field. What will happen is that they will drift against the electric field. Okay. So this basically creates what? So once the electrons have drifted against the electric field, see these electrons do not come out of the conductor under normal circumstances, but they drift against the electric field. Okay. So these electrons drift against the electric field. So we are left with residual atoms. Okay. So we are left with residual atoms which will have, of course, the atomic nuclei. They will have the atomic nuclei, and they will have the atomic nuclei and the bound electrons. The electrons which are bounded to the atoms. Whereas these free electrons will be a passage. Okay, these free electrons are in huge numbers, because of which the charges get conducted. So if we talk about conductors, there are a lot of things which behave as a conductor. Let's say metals, we have conductors. Metals, we know that there are a lot of silver is the best conducting material. Okay, then we have copper, then we have iron. All metals basically generally conduct electricity. So these are aluminium also conducts electricity. Right, so these are elements or other metals which conduct electricity. In liquids we have salt solutions. Okay, salt solutions, they conduct electricity due to ions. Here the salt solutions conduct electricity due to ions, not due to electrons. Okay, so salt solutions basically form ions and hence they conduct electricity. Salt solutions, alkalis we know are basically again they also form ions and they conduct electricity. What else? Human body is a good conductor of electricity. Human body basically is a good conductor of electricity. Then we have human body. Earth is a good conductor of electricity. Earth is a good conductor of electricity. So these are certain things which conduct electricity. Okay. When we talk about insulators, they do not conduct electricity. They generally accumulate the charges. The charges basically get accumulated. They get accumulated. They do not conduct electricity. They hardly have any very negligible amount. You can say that they have a very negligible amount of free electrons. They have a very negligible amount of free electrons. Okay, so they do not basically conduct electricity. These electrons are bound to the nucleus. So they are not free to move, because of which electricity doesn't get conducted in them. Okay. These insulators are also at times known as dielectrics. Why do we call them as dielectrics? The reason why we call them as dielectrics is because when they are, okay, so what happens? See, in an external electric field, the electrons drift away in conductors, the free electrons. Whereas when you are subjecting an insulator or a dielectric to an external electric field, when you are subjecting it to an external electric field, when you are subjecting an insulator or a dielectric to an external electric field, the induced charges, these are induced charges, because there see, charges appear or disappear due to electrons. Okay, a conductor gets charged due to electrons when it loses as well as when it gains. Okay, so now these electrons are very much bound to their nucleus, so they are not participating in any transfer of charges. When you are subjecting an insulator or a dielectric to an external, so what will happen is induced charges, these will be charges which are induced externally. These induced charges appear on the surface of the insulator or dielectric, whatever we are calling it. These induced charges will appear on the surface of the dielectric. Okay, so hence once they appear there, they start getting accumulated. So there is a accumulation of charges in insulators. In insulators, these charges appear on the surface of the dielectric, and hence there is a accumulation. Alright, so that's how they will accumulate. Now induced charges, so transfer of electric, so what are they doing basically? So see, electric effects are basically due to charges. So here the electric effects, they transmit, these dielectrics, they transmit electric effects. So charges will produce electric effects. Okay, so they transmit electric effects without actually conducting. Okay, transfers, the charges basically stay in one area. These charges that are there, these charges stay in one area. These charges basically stay in one area. That's how it happens in insulators. We have a lot of insulators. For example, rubber is an insulator, plastic is an insulator. Okay, we have a lot of other things as well which are insulators, which behave as insulators, and we require them because obviously we would need something to insulate the charging materials. Otherwise, we will all get a shock. If I happen to touch a live wire, I will get a shock because my body is a good conductor of electricity. The moment I touch a live wire, the charges flow from my body to the ground, and hence I get a shock. Okay, so if the live wire is covered with an insulating material like rubber or plastic, then I don't get that shock. Okay, so charges are transferred, they remain in one area. Charges transferred to it, so whenever you are transferring charges, so charges which are transferred to an insulating material, to an insulator, charges which are transferred to an insulator remain in one area. They remain in one area, alright? They are not distributed. Whereas if you transfer charges, when charges are transferred here, charges are transferred to a conductor, charges transferred to a conductor are evenly distributed across the body of the conductor. So they are evenly distributed across the body of the conductor. For example, when you happen to rub an ebonite rod with wool or maybe a glass rod with silk, what is happening is that the charges that are appearing due to the induced charges, they stay in one place. However, that doesn't happen when you happen to rub a metal rod. When you rub a metal rod, charges are induced, but these charges are quickly distributed across. Or even if the charges are coming in our body, they quickly go through my body into the earth. So that's the reason you will never find the accumulation of charges in metallic bodies or in good conductors, whereas in insulators you will always find an accumulation of charges. So what we are going to study in electrostatics is the phenomena of accumulation of charges, wherein the charges are not moving, they are static at one place, whereas in conductors we have charges which are continuously on the move. Okay, for all reasons they are on the move because they have a huge bank of free electrons. So these free electrons are the ones which are responsible for the conduction of charges in conductors, whereas the absence of phenomenally a good amount of free electrons in insulators leads to the accumulation of induced charges in them. Induced charges which are acquired in them, they remain in one place, they do not get. So you must have experienced a lot of things like when you are removing a sweater in a dry environment, you will feel that cracking sound. The reason why it happens is because of these charges. Automatically these charges accumulate for a very short period of time in that body, because of which you will feel that when you happen to touch a woolen chair, those chairs which are made up of woolen, and you happen to touch them, you get that electric feeling. Okay, the moment you touch it with a metallic surface, you will get that a short amount of charge that you feel. Okay, so these are electric charges. Okay, earth happens to be a very good conductor in our homes, in domestic connections as well as in industrial connections. There is an arrangement of earthing. What do we mean by earthing? There is a thick metallic strip which is basically going down in the building into the earth. Now this thick metallic strip, what does it do? Any amount of, see, there are a lot of flow of electrons. Especially when you see high electrically consuming units or appliances like let's say a geyser, or maybe an AC, or maybe a microwave oven, or a heater. All these things are appliances which consume electricity, and they will always have a 3-pin plug. They will always have a 3-pin plug. The reason why, see, this is for the outlet in the inlet of current, but this particular thing is for earthing. This is for earthing. So there is a high, since there is a huge flow. See, what is current? Current is basically flow of electrons. When I am trying to connect a electrical appliance which consumes a lot of electricity, obviously there will be a huge flow of electrons, and when the electrons are flowing, okay, they are flowing at a very high speed, and they might kind of accumulate for a very short period of time at one place, and if they accumulate, it can cause a short circuit. Okay, that's the reason there is this earthing thing there. Okay, any extra amount of electrons that is accumulating actually gets transferred to the earthing wire which is connected to the ground in a building. Okay, so all the flatmates or all the rooms that are there in that building are connected to that single earthing wire which goes deep into the ground. Why? Because any kind of accumulation of charges will go straight into the ground. Why? Because the earth is a good conductor of electricity. Okay, so we will not run the risk of our appliances going damaged. So it's very important that the earthing of a building or a house is maintained properly. Otherwise, we will always have the risk of appliances getting damaged due to accumulation of these electrons or electrical charges. Okay, so that pretty much explains about water conductors and insulators, things which we have already discussed and learned in your previous classes. But just a heads up as to how conduction happens. So whenever conduction is happening, it is due to electrons. The reason why conduction is not happening in dielectrics or insulators is because these electrons or these positive charges, they accumulate at one place. They are not flowing. Okay, so will there be an effect? Yes, the effects will be there, but we will study it in a different, because these are not dynamic charges, they are not moving. Hence, in electrodynamics, we understand the concepts of current electricity, or maybe magnetic effect of electric current and all. But in electrostatics, we just understand the phenomena of charges which are static at one place, which are not moving from one place. Alright, you can take a snapshot of the same. Alright, so we will have certain discussions about let's say the accumulation of charges effect. Okay, so we must have we have gone through this in earlier classes. There is this gold leaf experiment, in which what is done is that we have taken a glass jar. So there is this insulating material. This is basically a metallic rod, and it has a metallic surface here. Okay, this is a metallic rod. This is a metallic rod which is inserted inside a glass jar. Okay, so here we have a glass jar basically. Okay, and this is the metallic rod. Okay, now on the end of this rod we have thin gold leaves. Okay, so these are basically very thin. They are very thin gold leaves. Why they are taken as thin? This is something that we will understand in the later part of this chapter. Why only thin surfaces are concerned. See, you can understand this by this. When you actually very thin edges of an electrical appliance, let's say a fridge or maybe an AC, if you happen to touch their corners, you will get a slight amount of electric current. You can feel a certain amount of electric current or shock out there. All right. So in the same way, we have this gold leaf. The lesser is the surface area, the more will be the concentration of charges. Okay, that's something that we are going to study in detail in the later half of this chapter of electrostatics. Now, what we need to understand here is that there is this metallic rod. This is basically a metallic strip of rod. All right, so this is a metallic rod, and here we have a glass jar. This is basically a glass jar, and when we happen to, let's say, bring a body, how do we know whether the body is charged or not? So let's say this is a positively charged body. Now what will happen when it is brought here? When the positively charged body is touched with the metallic rod, we know that metals are good conductors, so charges evenly get distributed. The moment it is touched, now these positively charged particles will move throughout this, and when they move throughout this, they will also move in the gold plate. Gold plate, as we all know, is gold is a metal, so it will conduct electricity. So what happens is, since these are very thin, what will happen is that they will repel each other and they will bring up like this. So previously they were like this, but the moment the charges accumulate, since we know that like charges happen to repel each other, so these will disperse, or there will be a distance, they will repel each other, and the distance between them will get widened. Okay, so this is the gold leaf experiment. Not much to think about. What we are bringing in is a body, and we don't know whether it is charged or not. When we bring in the body, if it is charged, the charges pass and they are evenly distributed. Why? Because it is a conductor, and as we saw, in conductor the charges are evenly distributed. Okay, so charges get evenly distributed. The moment it reaches a thin leaf of gold foil, it kind of repels and it widens the gap. Okay, so if by bringing a body or touching the body on the metallic strip, this phenomena doesn't happen, then obviously the body is not charged. Okay, so an uncharged body will not cause this phenomena. That is called the gold leaf electroscope, and we basically use it. This is called gold leaf electroscope. We basically use it in order to determine whether a body has charge or not. So not much here. We have things like this. Now we know that charges are basically transferred by two processes. One is known as conduction, and the other process is by induction. So conduction basically involves the touching of a charged body with another body. That's called conduction. Here what is happening? The conduction is happening. Why? Because I'm sorry. Why? Because this charged body is touched with this body, so the conduction of charges happens. Now we'll understand what is induction, or how does this phenomena happen. Okay, so let's say we have here two metallic balls. So let's say we have a metallic ball, and let's say this is a metallic sphere. This is basically a metallic sphere, an uncharged body or a neutral body, and this is basically an insulating material. It can be made of anything which doesn't conduct electricity, and this is how it is. Okay, so when we are bringing a charged body close to it, we are not touching. Remember, in induction we do not touch the bodies. So here we are not touching. Let's say this is a charged body. Now when it is a charged body, what will happen? The charges, so this is positively charged body. Now these positively charged particles will attract the negatively charged particles or electrons that are there in the metallic sphere to this end. So all these charges will actually accumulate at this end. So this metallic sphere will become negative at this end, and it will automatically become positive at the other end till the time the body is here. This is what happens. Okay, so that's by induction. By induction, what we have done is we have brought a charged body close to a metallic body. The electrons accumulate in one place because of the attractive force. We know that unlike charges attract each other, so they are accumulated at one place, and consequently, due to the movement of electrons from one side to this side, obviously this side becomes positively charged. See, loss of electrons means the body acquires positive charge. Gain of electrons means the body acquires negative charge. It is applicable to all the bodies, irrespective of whether they are metallic, non-metallic, whatever. Okay, so here if we happen to do an earthing. Now as I told you, earth is a good conductor of electricity. If I happen to connect a wire to earth, that's how we show earthing. If I happen to connect a wire to earth, what will happen? The entire amount of charges will flow. The moment we remove this metallic sphere now becomes negatively charged, because as we see in conductors, the charges are evenly distributed. So the charges which are accumulated just at this place, by removing this charge body and by connecting it here, what has happened is that the positive charge particles have flowed into the earth, because of which the negatively charged particles will now redistribute themselves. And the same will happen, the reverse will happen if we bring a negatively charged body here. If we bring a negatively charged body, the positive charges will get accumulated here, this becomes negative, you connect it to the earth, the electrons flow here, and now the entire body will become, instead of being positively charged, it will become negatively charged. So this is charging by induction. Charging by induction is when we are not touching the body, when we are not touching the charged bodies together. Okay, that is called charging by induction. So there are different phenomena by which we can charge. Now let's say if in this case only we take a, let's say this is a metallic body or a ball, sphere, and we happen to touch a body. So now here we are trying to understand the phenomena of conduction as well as induction. We are trying to understand the phenomena of conduction as well as induction. So this is a metallic body A and this is a metallic body B. Okay, so this is a metallic body A and this is a metallic body B. When we are bringing a charged body close to it, when we are bringing a charged body close to it, what will happen? The electrons will accumulate here. Okay, here we are not doing any kind of earthing. Okay, so obviously this part will now, so this is acting as one body till they are joined. Let's say both are of the same element or material. So this is acting as one body, right? So the electrons have actually accumulated here, the protons or rather the positively charged particles are here. Okay, what will happen when we separate them? So what will happen when we separate them, just as it happened in the case of earthing, when we separated, or when we connected it to the earth. So what will happen when we separate them? So this positively charged particles will now redistribute and rearrange themselves throughout the sphere. Here, since there was an accumulation of negative charges, these negative charges will now redistribute themselves throughout the sphere. Okay, so the negative charged particles will redistribute themselves throughout the sphere, the positively charged particles will redistribute themselves throughout the sphere. So now we have removed this and we have separated them. The moment we remove and separate these, what will happen, and that has to be done very quick. Okay, so the positively charged, if you don't do it quick, when you have removed this, the entire charges will again redistribute and both the bodies will become neutral. So you have to do this simultaneously, you have to remove this and these two bodies simultaneously. Okay, because in metallic objects the charges redistribute very quick, because these are conductors, right? These are conductors, so the charges will redistribute themselves, again both A and B will become neutral. But here in this case what is happening is, the moment you remove this and you separate both of these, what will happen? The negative charges are accumulating here and the positive charges are accumulating here, due to which what is happening is, this body is becoming negatively charged and this body is becoming positively charged. So here what we see is an effect of both induction and conduction. Induction, why? Because this body which was actually charged had not touched any of these two bodies, that is A and B. Okay, so whatever changes or shifting of charges has happened, it has happened due to induction, as it happened here. Okay, but when we join them, this rearrangement of charges is by conduction, because these are conductors. So the electrons have kind of accumulated here, because of which this is accumulating as well. The moment we separate them, they become individually oppositely charged bodies. So that's how conduction and induction happens. Okay, so this is charging by induction, which of course we have learnt in previous classes as well. All right, so this is charging by induction. Okay, right. So now we need to understand here, there is a difference. So we have seen that both charge and mass are basically what? Intrinsic properties of matter. Both charge and mass are intrinsic properties of matter. Now, is there a difference in which they work? See, charge, we need to understand here conservation. Conservation means that it remains conserved. So in charges, the charges are always going to remain as conserved. Charges are always conserved. They will always remain as conserved. For example, if I take let's say a bag of charges. Let's say this is a bag of charges. I have here a charge of let's say +2, -3, +4. Okay, I have just kept the balls. Let's say these are balls of charges. All right, and I happen to jumble them and I leave them. Now when I leave them, these balls are having charges at +3, -1, and there's the third ball. I don't know what's its charge. Can I find it out? Yes, I can. Why? Because the total amount of charge that will be there here is 4 + 2, 6, 6 - 3. So that is +3. What is the total amount of charge here? +3 - 1, that is 2. So this has to be +1. So what I mean here is that the charges are going to remain as conserved. Okay, the charges, the total amount of charges that are there in a body, they are going to remain as conserved. Unlike in mass, we have studied in mass is having this formula. Understand, 1/v² / c². Okay, so yes, a body which is at rest, in that case there is no velocity, so this will be 0. But a body which is moving, that has a scope of a change of mass. Of course, our day-to-day activities or our day-to-day bodies which we see around us moving, they are not moving with that high speed which would kind of cancel out the speed of light. Okay, so this factor is very less, almost nearly 0 for the things that we see around us, maybe a train, plane, whatever. Okay, so these are very much far away from the speed of light. Okay, that's the reason this fraction itself is very low to be actually considered as a whole. So it's a negligible effect. But if this increases to a significant amount, then then you will see a change in the mass. So this is the mass of the body and this is its rest mass. The mass of the body when it is at rest. Okay, so yes, in terms of conservation of mass, we are still to establish whether mass is conserved. Okay, generally in lower classes you have studied that mass is a universal constant. Whether you take a body on earth or whether you take a body on moon or whether anywhere in space, the quantity of matter that is there in that body is going to remain conserved. Yes, it is, but during its movement, will there be a change? Yes, there is a scope of change, and that's the relationship between mass and rest mass of a body. So if you talk about conservation of charge and mass, yes, charges will always remain as conserved. Okay, so charges are always going to be conserved. We'll talk more about this in the next slide, but for the time being, just understand what is induction, what is conduction, what is charges, how are they correlated, and we will also study the conservation as well as quantization of charge. That is something that we are going to study. So you can take a snapshot of the same. Alright, so what we are going to discuss now is quantization of charges. Quantization of charges. Now, whenever we say quantization of anything, what does it actually mean? Okay, so for example, when we are purchasing milk, okay, so let's say it comes in packets of 500 milliliters or half liter, okay, whatever. Okay, so it comes in 500 milliliters. When I need a packet of milk, okay, whether it is Amul, whether it is any other company, whatever, okay, so these come in 500 milliliters. So when I am going to the market to get a packet of milk, okay, so I will get, so let's say if I need 2 liters of milk, then how many packets will I need? I would need half into 4 packets, right? That will make it 2 liters. All right, so what I'm having here is 4 packets in order to get 2 liters of milk. All right, so in the same way, if I need 2.5 liters of milk, then I would need 5 packets of milk. So whatever I am purchasing can only be in this unit. Now if I say I would need 2.25 liter of milk, then will this be possible? No, because 4 packets will make 2 liters, but I cannot have a 0.25 liter milk as a separate out packet. Okay, what I mean here is that whenever we are talking about charges, so here the milk packets can only be in integral numbers. The milk packets that I am purchasing can only be in integral numbers, which can be either 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on and so forth. Alright, I cannot say that I need 1.5 packet of milk. I can have 1.5 liters of milk, which will be basically 3 packets of milk. But I cannot say 1.5 packets of milk. That would not be possible. Okay, it would not be possible for the sellers to sell milk in this way. Okay, when we are talking about proper processed milks which are sold in packets, okay, by different companies. So that's what we mean by quantization. Quantization basically means the expressing of any commodity in integral multiples, whatever is the value of that commodity. Okay, for example, when I say an electron has a charge of 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulombs. So what it means is that this is a charge of 1 electron. I cannot say 1.5 electrons or half electron or 0.75 electron. I can either say 1 electron, 2 electron, 3 electron, 4 electron, 5 electron and so on and so forth. So whenever I am expressing the charge of a body, it is always expressed as a sum total of the number of charges that the body possesses. Okay, so that is what we mean by quantization of charge. Quantization basically means assigning an integral multiple. I cannot have values like fractional values like 7 by 5 or maybe 2 by 3 or maybe 1.74. I cannot have values like this for electrons, for a charged body. Okay, quantization means expressing in proper integral multiples of this number, that is basically the charge of an electron. When we talk about a proton, it has a charge of plus 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulombs. We need to understand that charge is a scalar quantity, it is not a vector quantity. Yes, it does have, it has signs. Positive charge will be expressed by a positive sign, negative charge will be expressed by a negative sign. There will be SI unit of coulombs to it, but it will not have a direction. It doesn't have directional properties, so it's a scalar quantity. Okay, when we talk about an electron, it has a charge of 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 9 electrons. So basically protons and electrons have almost the same charge of 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 electrons. So that's basically the charge that can be possessed by a body in terms of the protons or the electrons. Okay, now when we talk about quantization of electric charge, quantization is the property by virtue of which all free charges are integral multiples. So all free charges. Okay, so let's first write down the definition here. Quantization of charges is a property. Quantization of charges is a property by virtue of which all free charges. Now what do we mean by free charges? Charges which have a independent existence. Charges capable of having an independent existence. They basically have an independent existence. So all free charges which are capable of having a free and independent existence. So quantization of charges is a property by virtue of which all free charges are integral multiples of integral multiples Quantization of charges is a property by virtue of which all free charges are integral multiples of the basic unit of charge, that is represented by the charge of an electron. Okay, so see this is how we will represent. So the charge possessed by a body will be Ne. So if a body has got n number of electrons, the total charge on the body will be Ne. Depending, okay, if it has got n number of protons, then it will be n into E again. In one case, in the case of protons, it will be plus n into E. In the case of electrons, it will be minus n into E. So basically this can be stated. Now what quantization means is that this n will only have values as 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. It cannot have value like 1.4, 1.25, 3.4, 5 by 6, 7 by 8. No, we cannot have values like this. We will have to have proper integral values, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's what we call as quantization of charge. For example, if a body has let's say n1 number of protons, let's say a body has n1 number of protons, okay, and the body has got n2 number of electrons. The same body has got n2 number of electrons, okay. So in this case, what will be the net charge of the body? Net charge will be the number of protons minus the number of electrons. So net charge will be n1 minus n2 into the value of charge of one electron, that is 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19. So this will be, now n1 minus n2, since this is an integer, this is an integer, obviously the result will be an integer. Let's say it's n, and this will be equal to ne, which is basically n into 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulombs. So this is again an integral multiple of the basic unit of charge, which is 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulombs, okay. So charges which are there in a body are always in an integral multiple, okay. So charges which are there in a body will always be in an integral multiple, and that's how we will represent charges, okay. So if I say a body has got 2 electrons, then the total charge in the body will be 2 into 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulombs. If a minus, okay, if a body has got 4 protons, then it will be plus 4 into 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulombs. So this is what we actually mean by quantization of charges, okay. Quantization of charges, this is something that we mean by quantization of charges, okay. You can take a snapshot of the same. Right, so we will have to consider the quantization of charge in a little detail here. So what we understood is that the smallest charge in a body or substance, material, anything, the smallest charge in a body that can afford to have an independent existence, the smallest charge in a body that can afford to have an independent existence, that is it can exist freely, is the charge of an electron, and that is basically 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulombs, okay. When we talk about a charge of a proton, it's just that the sign will be different and it will be plus. Here it is minus, the charge of a proton, it will be plus, okay. So the smallest charge in a body that can afford to have an independent existence is the charge of an electron, which is 1 point, and this is known as the fundamental charge. All the charges in the body are expressed as a quantized quantity of this fundamental charge, okay. So all charges will be basically Ne. This is the quantization of charge. This is called quantization of charge. Whenever we are expressing the charge of a body, we will have to express it as an integral multiple of the fundamental charge, which is 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulombs. Coulombs is the SI unit of charge. This is SI unit of charge. So is there a possibility? Now there are some recent studies and recent researches that have shown that charges can also exist in the form of quarks. Now what are these quarks? Neutrons and protons basically can be expressed in terms of quarks. Sometimes we have 1 by 3 this, okay, or 2 by 3 this. This is not possible in case of, now what happens is the quarks do not have independent existence. So we have to understand this, that whenever we are talking about charges which have an independent existence and which can exist freely, which can participate in a chemical reaction, or which can basically participate in the conductance and all, we will not refer to these because they will not have an independent existence. These electrons have an independent existence. Whenever we are talking about quantization of charge, we mean that they have an independent existence. For example, if let's say a question is asked as to what is the charge of a body, that has let's say 30 electrons in excess. What does it mean here? It means that this body, apart from whatever positive charges it has 30 electrons extra. So what will be the net charge of this body? The net charge of this body will be 30 into the charge of 1 electron, which is basically 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulomb, whatever the answer is. All right. So that will be the total charge of this body. Okay, or the net charge, whatever we are saying. Now, if the question is asked in a different way, let's say, is it possible for a body to have a charge, a total charge of let's say 4.8 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulombs? So what we will have to do in this case is that if this total charge is divided by the fundamental charge, that is 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19, if we are getting an integer, then it is possible. So in this case, if I divide this by the fundamental charge, which is of 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19, I get 3 as an answer, and 3 is an integer. Yes, it is possible. If you are asked that if a total charge, is it possible a total charge of let's say 5.8 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulomb. Now if I divide this 5.8 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulomb by 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19, so do I get an integer? No, I will not get an integer here. Okay, so the answer here somewhere will be 5.8. So this will be somewhere 3 point something. 16 is a 48, 6 is 6. Suppose this is not an integer, and hence it is not possible for a body to have a charge of 5.8 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulomb. Why? Because you cannot express it as a quantized charge. Okay, we cannot express it as a proper quantized way. Again, there is another property of charges which is called the additive property. Okay, so if I say that a body has charge, let's say plus q, plus 3q, minus 4q, 6q. These are the total charges that a body has. So what will be the total charge of the body? We will just keep on adding along with their signs. So here we have 4q minus 4q will be 0. So the total charge of the body will be plus 6q. Whatever this q is, okay, that will be the total charge of the body. So charges are additive. Charges are additive. So what do we mean by charges are additive? What we mean by charges are additive is that they can be basically added algebraically. They can be added algebraically, which means that they can be added along with their signs and the net charge of the body can be found out. Alright, so the net charge of the body will be basically this sum total of all the charges that it contains. So any body which has a total of charges, we can just add their charges and arrive at the conclusion. Okay, I hope this is pretty much clear. So, alright, so we will move on to the next aspect of charge. In this particular slide, we will consider the conservation of charge, and post that we will study what is the difference between a charge and a mass, and hence we will actually go deep into Coulomb's law. Okay, so before that we will almost finish all the aspects that are correlated to charges. Now the other aspect that is correlated to charge is conservation of charges. Now what is, see, we have studied what is quantization of charge, which means that charges always exist in integral multiples. Now we come to conservation of charges. So what is basically the conservation of charge? Conservation means that it remains constant. So conservation of the charges is basically a property So conservation of charges is basically a property by virtue of which the total charges in an isolated system, conservation of charges is basically a property by virtue of which the total charges in an isolated system always remain constant. What do we mean by an isolated system? An isolated system means a system in which there is no external inflow or outflow of charges. Okay, so an isolated system is pretty much isolated. Okay, so if we have a system in which there are charges, let's say +2, then -3, +4 and -7, and we happen to shuffle it, we have not made this is an isolated system. Some shuffling happens, so there is a ball which is having a charge of +2, there is a ball which is having a charge of +4, there is a ball which is having a charge of -3, and there is a ball which is having a charge of -7. So let's say we mark these balls as A, B, C and D. After some time, when we shuffle and all, let's say A, by some shuffling property, it has acquired a charge of +3. Let's say C, again by some shuffling and all, it has acquired a charge of +1. Let's say B, it has acquired a charge of -2. So can we tell what will be the charge on D? Yes, very much. Why? Because 2 + 4, 6, 6 - 10, that is -4, that is the total charge. Here also it should be -4. So let's see what makes it -4. So we have it here 3 + 1, 4, 4 - 2 is -2. How do we get -4? So 4 - 2 is +2, basically 2, this will be -6. So this is called conservation of charge. So in an isolated system, in a system which is isolated from the rest, okay, the total amount of charges are always going to remain the same. The total amount of charges are always going to remain the same. Now, we cannot alter the net charge that is occupied by a system. Okay, so the net charge possessed by an isolated system can neither be created nor destroyed. So it can neither be created nor can it be destroyed. So the net charge which is possessed by an isolated system, it can neither be created nor it can be destroyed. Okay, so that is what we mean by conservation of charges. Now there are certain things like there are certain patterns that we need to understand. Okay, when it comes to charges, there is something called as pair production. Okay, so in pair production, this is a phenomena basically. Pair production is a phenomena. So let's say a gamma ray photon. Okay, this is basically a gamma ray photon which is basically neutral. Alpha rays are positively charged, beta rays are negatively charged, gamma rays are neutral. So this basically materializes into an electron and a positron. This is called a positron. Basically a proton, a positron, and this is basically an electron. So look at the net charges in the left hand side, it is 0. If you look at the net amount of charges in the right hand side, it will again be 0. Okay, there is another phenomena which is known as annihilation of matter. Annihilation of matter. Not that we need to go deep into it, but all we need to understand here is that the charges in a particular isolated system will always remain as constant. So in this case, the reverse happens. So here an electron and a positron actually unite to give 2 gamma photons. Again, gamma 2 or 3 or 4, it is neutral. Okay, it doesn't matter how many particles we are getting as gamma photons. Okay, this is neutral. In the left hand side, if we look, the total charge is neutral. There is another process in which radioactive decay happens. Okay, so radioactive substances, they are undergoing constant emissions, due to which they lose electrons and their atomic number decreases. For example, if you look uranium 238, which is having an atomic number of 92. So this is basically its atomic mass. It is having an atomic number of 92. Okay, when it disintegrates into thorium, which has an atomic mass of 234 and which has an atomic number of 90, and helium, okay, which has an atomic mass of 4 and atomic number. So if you look into it, the total charge here is 92. That's basically the atomic number, right? So here also it's 90 plus 2. Right hand side you will get the same amount, left hand side. So in an isolated system there is no exchange of charges. Charges can neither be created nor destroyed. So this is called conservation of charge. So with that we almost come to an end of studying charges as a whole, because charges are the ones which will constitute static electricity. So when we talk about charge and mass, what are the basic differences? Electric charge can either be positive or negative. We have understood this. Okay, mass of a body is always a positive quantity. It can never be negative. We cannot say that the body has a mass of minus 3 kg. No, we cannot, right? So mass is always a positive quantity. Charge is independent of velocity of the body. So no matter what is the velocity of the body, the charge will not get altered. Okay, so a moving charge will never have any alterations to its mass. Okay, so charge is its charge is individually independent of the velocity of the body, whereas if you look at the mass of a body, it increases with velocity. We have seen in the earlier examples wherein we had mass is equal to rest mass upon 1 minus v square by c square, where v is the velocity of the body, and c is the velocity of light. This is the rest mass of the body. So basically what it means here is that whenever a body is moving, it tends to gain some mass. Okay, a moving body basically tends to gain some mass, A moving body will tend to gain some mass. Charge is quantized. Okay, we have studied what is quantization of charge. We can express charge only in integral multiples. So charge is more or less quantized, whereas mass, it is still unanswerable whether mass is quantized or not. Mass, this is something that is still not answered. Okay, we don't have a fixed answer to this one till yet. Okay, but charge is pretty much quantized. It can be expressed in integral multiples. Now electric charge is always conserved. Which means that no matter if it is an isolated system, the charge will remain conserved. There might be shuffling between the charges. The charging values might change, but in a body which is isolated from the rest of the surroundings, the charge will always remain as conserved. Mass is not conserved as it changes into energy and vice versa. We have famous Einstein's equation, E is equal to mc square. So what it means here is that mass basically has a possibility of changing into energy and vice versa. Okay, so mass may or may not be conserved. It has a possibility of changing into, I hope this will not be visible. So it has a possibility of changing into energy and vice versa. I will just have to rub certain points out here to include the point which is not visible, I suppose, in the camera. Okay, now the force between the two charges. Okay, force between two charges the force between two charges is either attractive if the two charges are unlike charges. Okay, if the two charges are unlike charges, a positive and a negative charge, then can be an attractive charge, or it can be repulsive. Repulsive when the two charges are like charges, two positive charges, two negative charges. So force between two charges are either attractive or repulsive depending on the charges. Are we clear on this one? Okay. Now we need to understand here the force between two masses. Force between two masses is always attractive. The force between two masses is always attractive. Okay. For example, if we look at the gravitational force means what? G m1 m2 by r square. Here the force between two masses m1 This is universal law of gravitation, right? We have studied in the earlier classes. M1 and M2, it will always be an attractive force, no matter whether it is high or low or whatever, negligible or considerable, okay, but it will always be attractive, whereas the force between two charges can be either attractive or repulsive. So with that, we are basically covering or touch basing with all the aspects that can be correlated to charges, okay. We are more or less covering everything which are correlated. The reason why we need to start electrostatics with charges is because electrostatics is all about study of charges, okay. So we need to start with charges. We need to understand their aspects of conservation, we need to understand their aspects of quantization, we need to understand their properties of repulsiveness or attractiveness, whatever, okay. So these were certain aspects for charges which we needed to discuss, so that we can now proceed into the basics of electrostatics, and we will start in the next slide with Coulomb's law, okay. So this pretty much covers the introductory portion of, it is more or less the introductory part of electrostatics, okay. So you can take a snapshot of the same.